What's an Alaskan food culture? What's our food future? And why is it important? After culinary school, I worked for 2 years in New Orleans, Louisiana, and later 5 in North Carolina. Cooking in these areas had a huge impact on me, experiencing the traditional foods of the South that had bloomed out of integrating cultures, adapting to the geographic area, with hundreds of years of stewing. These food cultures and flavors were grown from necessity, availability, financial means or lack thereof, and seasonality to create something unique and amazing. I began to think about Alaska's food culture. What does it look like? A catalyst in this journey was my first visit to the National Museum of American Indian in Washington, D.C. I catered the release for The Rights of All. This is a documentary about the civil rights bill passed in Alaska that predates the national civil rights movement by 20 years. The film focused on the great changes Indigenous Alaskans were facing and the fortitude that demonstrated during these times of transition. Upstairs, I caught another exhibit, The Birth of Native American Skate Culture, Truth is Propaganda. Professional skateboarder Jim Murphy, who's American Native, also started a skateboarding company that promoted Native American history to youth on this contemporary platform. This has instilled knowledge of history and pride to young people while promoting health and athletics. These experiences resonated with me for a couple of reasons. Reflecting upon my own Native identity, I realized I would be contemporary with my career while highlighting traditional ways with food. These were the first examples of understanding my Native identity in a contemporary fashion. The final impetus came when I had a family. As a teenager and young adult, I found my confidence in the kitchen. I realized that I'd compartmentalized my insecurities about being Alaska Native. This was brought to the forefront during a time of reflection with my wife's pregnancy. As a parent, I do not believe it is my job to give my daughter everything, but I do believe it is my job to prepare her for anything. The best gift that we can give as parents is to instill a sense of pride of self so that she can make the best decisions as an adult. In 2010, while interviewing a farmer for the Fresh Alaska series, he mentioned that Alaska was a food desert. It struck me, how can I as an Alaska Native be here if we live in a food desert? The Fresh Alaska webisodes gave me the confidence to step out and look for opportunities to highlight and promote Alaska's regional cuisine. Out of this, Fresh49.com was born. Awareness and accessibility of Alaska's food supply became my mantra, bringing attention to Alaska's food culture, infrastructure, and supply. So why should we be concerned? Currently, Alaska imports 95% of our food. The budget annually is $2 billion. 1% of $2 billion is $20 million. If we slide the scale 1 percentage point towards us, we will have an influx of $20 million, and that can go a long way in Alaska. Food security. Our state is lowly populated and tremendously large. Removed from the rest of the lower 48, food has to travel far. This puts us at a disadvantage. For greater benefit, we should be producing micro goods, not accepting macro goods. Health and wellness of Alaskans, diabetes, obesity, cancer, they're high in our state. We can decrease these numbers with a healthier diet while engaging with our environment. Building a stronger community with understanding and empathy for Alaska's diversity. The first order of business, identify, embrace, and promote Alaska's food culture. This is a 3-part effort. The way I look at it, over the past 50 years with convenience and technology, we have been overlooking 10,000 years of indigenous traditions and seasonality in Alaska. Last year, we brought that to the table with a traditional foods contemporary chef. In this series, we fished, foraged, gathered, pulled the traditional ingredients back to the kitchen, and prepared healthy contemporary recipes with traditional foods. The goals were to highlight nutrient-dense traditional foods featuring quick recipes with accessible ingredients, and promoting and celebrating indigenous Alaskan ingenuity, resourcefulness, and resilience. These are some examples. This is a rockfish dish. This was prepared in Southeast. The rockfish was long line secured, and it's garnished with foraged vegetables or foraged greens, seaweed, and seal oil. It was amazingly nutritious, delicious, And I would have been proud to serve this anywhere I've been in the past and anywhere I would go in the future as far as the dish is concerned. The next example, this is a fish head soup. So part of my job was to take the dish and deconstruct it. And one of the things I found was, first of all, I didn't grow up eating like this, but this is a very traditional meal. What happens, you simmer the fish head, you obviously get the omega-3 fatty acids from the fish, high protein, and calcium actually in a diet that is devoid of dairy. So the calcium leaches from the bones. There's bladderwrack seaweed as well, and again, high in calcium, trace minerals, and vitamin K. Vitamin K actually, it actually absorbs the omega-3 fatty acids or vitamin D into your body. And just to kind of give you the whole picture, in Alaska, the further north you go, the darker it can be in the wintertime. So you're actually balancing out the rough terrain and the environment with the food. It's all here if you listen. So the next part is the contemporary food supply. And by that I mean ranching, dairy, farming, artisan product. The goal is to maximize the availability of local goods. At the moment, that infrastructure is mostly grassroots, CSA boxes, farmers markets, so some local grocers. But I think there's room for improvement. This is kind of the idea, demand can't equal supply. We've got local meats being advertised at a local grocer. 40 miles north, we've got pasture-raised meats, but due to lack of infrastructure, we cannot get that to the market, whether that be cost or knowing. So this is kind of a great example of leading with initiative and letting people know what you want. The next is birch syrup. 100 gallons of birch sap equals a gallon of birch syrup. There's a 3-week window annually to get the birch sap, and this is an amazingly unique and tasty ingredient, not to mention it's exceptionally beneficial for you nutritionally. This is the idea of integrating traditional foods and contemporary foods. Now, while this is king crab, and it's obviously considered very decadent or very decadent all around the world, it is a traditional food. So this is traditionally, you have king crab, you have reindeer, which has been herded in Alaska, traditionally as well. And this is served with all local farmers markets product. Now, I had a visiting chef from the south, that's why it's a fried green tomato on top of the hash, birch syrup on there, English peas, and this was literally 2 stops, seafood monger and a farmer's market. So the next example, this is a parsnip cake, parsnips from the valley, spruce tip chantilly, and spruce tip syrup. The chef that was visiting, he's been around the world, he's eaten in Michelin star restaurants, and he has never had spruce tip syrup or birch syrup. He licked the plate clean. And I think these are examples of things that we can do to elevate our food infrastructure and really promote it in a positive fashion. The third part of this, I call it the technology angle, or the food pioneers. These are cultivated mushrooms from Kinneen. They're available for the week. I've been seeing this guy starting this project for about 3 years now, and he's had some learning curves, but I had fresh mushrooms last night for dinner, and they were amazing. So that's a great opportunity that's presenting itself here. We all heard from Bernie Carl earlier today. When you meet Bernie, you don't forget it. He uses innovation with energy, alternative energies, producing hothouse vegetables all year round, even when it's -40, like he gets in Chena Hot Springs. Meyer Farm, located in Bethel on the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, 5,000 people. He actually digs into the ground and creates an incubation or infrastructure for his produce, which is certified organic, and it's fertilized with byproduct of fish meal, which is obviously found a lot in Bethel. The result is an organic produce that is actually being exported to Anchorage because it's so prolific there. So that's a great example of using your environment and working with it. And lastly, this is the center market, and this is my friend Alex Davis. This is the 99th week of his market. So he's been going strong for 2 years almost. And what he did is he reconfigured his growing produce cycle so that he actually has a stock of produce that he can sell year-round after all the other farmer markets have stopped. When you go to his market, he's got naturally raised pork, beef, produce. He's got an array of dairy products, and he's got cultivated mushrooms. So it's a great idea of just kind of rearranging, changing the game a little bit. Another example, this is a rolled meatloaf. This is a dish that I have done in restaurants and we did for the Traditional Foods Contemporary Chef series. But what I want to talk about is the meat. And moose is free range. So they, and they're herbivores, so they're eating roots and tree branches and bark. And when we harvest them in the wintertime, what we're doing is not only getting high protein, but we're also getting exceptionally large amounts of minerals and vitamins that are subsidized from the lack of having a garden in those off months. And that's how traditionally Indigenous Alaskans were given their balance of protein. Again, listening to your environment and eating and using what's around. So that said, we do have reindeer, elk, and bison in Alaska, and we actually even ranch it. They are free range in the sense that they are pasture fed. And I believe if we modified our USDA processing facilities, we could actually have a top shelf internationally desired product. I believe that's a tremendous opportunity right there. So what can we do? The first step would be knowing what goods are available in Alaska: pork, dairy, elk, beef, eggs, vegetables, flours, grains. I'll put it to you like this: if 10 people a day walk out of a store voting with their dollars, change will be made. So the first step is knowing what's available. The second step is voting with your dollars and demanding it. Be loud about it. Support farmers and packers of local goods. Buy local. Support local business and businesses that buy local. Actions we can take now. Support projects and programs that think outside the box. University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension. They are proactively focusing on food concerns and energy concerns around the state. Alaska Food Policy Council, setting standards and ideas to grow food in Alaska securely, enhance security. Alaska Farmland Trust, protecting and preserving farmland, keeping farmland. Reusable Energy Alaska Project, champions of alternative energies in Alaska. And the Anchorage Food Mosaic. It's celebrating the newest residents and food cultures in Alaska. Lastly, as a mixed-race Native Alaskan, I grew up with a lack of sense of place. Over the past years, these experiences have led me to understand traditional Native values at their core reflect the personal integrity and community contribution. As a husband, father, and son, I try to walk a path that will make my family proud. I contribute to my community as a chef and a citizen. The common denominator of food has brought me closer to my identity and made me realize the importance to promote the regional bounty Alaska has to offer. I am of the belief by merging traditional knowledge, technology, and contemporary markets, we can reward rural populations for their traditional knowledge and make Alaska a better, healthier, and more vibrant place to be. Thank you.